Well, as 2026 begins, Canada finds itself pulled into a widening storm. U.S. power plays abroad, unsettling rhetoric closer to home, and a federal political landscape that could shift overnight.
That it could, very much so. And tonight we cut through the noise, what Trump's latest moves mean for Canada, whether Ottawa is ready for what's coming, and where the political numbers really stand.
Yeah, and yes, after all of that, we'll talk hockey. From Mazatlan, Mexico, I'm Eddie Tecali.
And at home in base Montreal, I'm Gary MacDonald. This is Night Talk Canada, episode 65. Let's get started. All right. So let's have a chat about our friend Donald Trump. Well, maybe a lot of people would not call him our friend. But Donald Trump is once again pushing U.S. power outward, this time toward Venezuela with talk of reviving oil production and democracy under American influence, and renewed threats toward other nations, familiar rhetoric about Greenland, and echoes of the 51st state language for us here in Canada. Well, this isn't distant foreign policy. It's a warning sign. The question tonight, how exposed is Canada when U.S. politics turn aggressive again? So let's have a look at something, Eddie. Back on Saturday morning, we all awoke to the breaking news scenarios of I call it the invasion of Venezuela. Yeah, maybe they didn't hang around full tilt, but still they went in, they snatched the president and his wife. The word kidnap has been used on more than one occasion in relation to this operation, and whisked them off to New York City, where they have been in court over the last couple of days. Trump actually did have a news conference later in the morning at Mar-a-Lago, and this is how it all started.
Late last night and early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history.
All began, and then later, well, let's talk a little bit about that first, and how the buildup has been there. It all started with an issue that you and I discussed on a couple of occasions before Christmas, and that was when they were bombing the so-called drug boats out of the water in both the Atlantic coast and on the Pacific coast of the U.S. as well, but out in international waters. No solid evidence, Eddie, to my mind, has ever been offered that those boats that they actually hit were carrying drugs. And if you recall, there was one where the order was given and it filtered down through to one of the top-ranking officers who shouldered the blame for it. But the order was given, there were a couple of survivors, take them out, and they did.
Yeah.
There were some protests, words of protest, but the international community, for the large part, was basically silent.
Yes, it was.
And I couldn't believe what I was not hearing from the international community about this the operation on both coasts and taking these boats out. So that to me emboldened Trump to move forward even more so. And he's saying, to hell with international law, to hell with maritime law, to hell with any law, which he already has in his own country, and let's just move forward. So all of a sudden, bang, here we go. And he keeps talking about the drugs coming in from Venezuela, and on it goes. And then we have the operation to go in and take the drug lord and his wife out.
Right.
Boom. And there are a couple of things that come to my mind, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it because you've been traveling kind of in between while all of this was happening. And so we haven't had a chance to really have a talk about it. But also, you're in Mexico, and you mentioned the other day about reading some of the Mexican newspapers and listening to some of the Mexican media, because Trump is, and we'll get into this in more detail in a few minutes, but Trump is threatening pretty much everyone in the Western Hemisphere at the moment. So what sort of feeling are you getting in Mexico?
Well, you know what? Interestingly enough, most of the bits and pieces I've been picking up has been from the local newspapers, they're Scheinbaum, President Scheinbaum here. I think out of pretty much most of the people that you and I would expect to condemn the United States heavily from the onset of the small speedboat bombings or fishing boat bombings, as you mentioned earlier on, we didn't hear any condemnation there. And you know what? We've heard kind of light, polite condemnation on the attack on Venezuela, as opposed to absolute firm condemnation, like outrage. As a matter of fact, is the words, the type of wording I would like to have heard. Claudia Scheinbaum is pretty defiant. She has not supported what President Trump has done and the United States has done. She's basically saying that they absolutely under no terms do they want boots on the ground here flagged as assistance by the United States to deal with the drug cartels here. So they seem to be pretty firm in their resolve in ensuring that the country of Mexico remains sovereign without foreign influence. We really didn't have an opportunity to speak to too many Mexican locals yet in terms of what's been going on here in Mazatlan. But over the next couple of weeks, as we start going to some of the restaurants, we'll be seeing a lot of Canadian expats here. We'll probably run into some American people here, and I'm sure the conversation will start at some point in terms of what's going on in this world. So most of the pushback is from Claudia Scheinbaum, who has been pretty much the most vocal. And then of course you have the rest of the South American nations, or the nations that are in the crosshairs of the American government. The Colombian president pretty much said, and they actually had that on the second page here in one of the Mexican newspapers. The president of Colombia basically says, "Come and get me." He's basically egging El Maestro Presidente Trump to come and get him. Whether he's going to do it or not, time will tell, Gary. But you know what? I don't think there's anything out of the question right now for this totalitarian regime. Because look, it does not seem like the United States that you and I grew up with, the pillar for democracy in the world. It's far from that right now, and a lot of the Mexican newspaper also quoting Claudia Scheinbaum in saying that she doesn't recognize the interim presidency of Venezuela right now, and calling to put somebody in power that was that's that's elected and proposed by the people of Venezuela, as opposed to by the de facto occupier of the country, being the United States of America. They may not have the boots on the ground there in terms of an occupational force with boots on the ground, but you know what? They've got a major carrier group just off the coast of Venezuela. They could
Yep.
rule the country from there very, very, very easily. All it takes is a push of a button, and you'll have, a couple of dozen $500,000 missiles raining down on them very, very quickly. So it is an occupied country, no boots in the ground, but they're basically being controlled by the naval forces that are just off the coast of Venezuela right now. So yeah, right now Mexico, they're being defiant. They're being protective of their sovereignty. They're being protective of their borders, and only time will tell whether the dictator in chief is actually going to do something. And unfortunately, the method of operations, the way he works is, unless you kiss the ring and kiss it twice and kiss it hard and thank him for it, you don't push his buttons in terms of A, trying to insult him, B, not following his directives, and C, making fun of him. He does not do very well with that. So Gary, I guess only time will tell, and I'm looking forward to speaking to some of the locals here to see and hear what they feel about this.
It's funny. You would think with all of the orange paste he has on his face and head that he would have a much thicker skin now than what he really does have.
Yeah.
Now, the picture you see in the middle of the screen is the picture. That's how it was announced to the world by the Trumpster on his Truth Social, before even the formal news conference later in the morning. This is how it was announced, just after they arrested him, put him in cuffs, and they were herding him out to the helicopter to ferry him off to the aircraft carrier, drop him off somewhere else, and then fly him by jet to New York.
Right.
So,
it's the irony of the whole thing too, though, Gary. I mean, I mean, for our viewers and you and I in our discussions, I mean, Maduro was a vicious dictator. Okay, there's no question about that. And him being out of power is a good thing for the country. Him being taken out of power is a good thing for the country. It's how he was ousted that's in question internationally right now. I know I have a few Venezuelan friends who, are basically saying, erring on the side of caution and saying, look, Maduro out of that president's chair is not a bad thing. Let's just give this some time. The problem is give this some time. Right now we have his vice president, Maduro's vice president, that's in charge, who follows his doctrines and policies, who can be just as bad until Donald Trump decides who's actually going to be in power of Venezuela. And look, you and I both know that whoever is going to be in power has to kiss the ring and basically hand over all the natural resources of Venezuela for the United States to exploit. Because at the end of the day, Gary, there is no one in this world that has any sense, that doesn't see this invasion for what it actually was and is. It's about oil. There is a running joke right now that George Carlin once said, and he didn't actually say it, but it makes perfect sense. The United States is a big oil company that happens to own an army.
Yeah.
I mean, how much clearer can that picture get? Because that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Apparently, he didn't notify Congress, but he did have conversations with some of the CEOs of big oil companies in the States to let them know that they'd soon have Venezuelan oil, just before this whole operation took place. Well, we didn't notify Congress. There were too many leaks coming through Congress. Yeah.
But
and the other thing that's in the background too, Eddie, is not only is it about oil, it's also about, this has taken, have you heard anything about the Epstein files lately in the last couple of days?
No, not really.
No. No. That's another part of the move. But the big thing is, It is oil. And again, there's a couple of things I'll bring up about that. But first, you mentioned about the Colombian president saying, come and get me. Well,
Right.
this popped up on social media the other day as well. Right. I can't play the audio, so I'll have to cut the audio off because there's copyrighted music in it, and we don't want to get a copyright strike. So just enjoy the sounds of silence in what you see. You'll be able to piece it together, no problem.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was put to maybe the 70s, I think. So rock music. And then on top of that, there's one more. We're not done. This is on
Okay.
Trump's Truth Social.
Okay.
Watch this one. And this one is put to CCR's Fortunate Son from the 60s, the Vietnam era. Here we go. But that'll give you an idea as to what exactly went on. And this
You
is
know what?
posted.
These things that this man posts, war is ugly. War is supposed to be ugly.
Right.
How do you go about promoting the bombing of anything? Okay. Um, it because he posts it, excuse me, because he posts it, it makes it okay.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
just doesn't make any sense. I mean, just promoting and with uh, rock music, which I'm sure that the members of these musicians are not happy that their music is being used in context of making war with another country, with killing people in another country, with killing. Fine, they might be soldiers under a dictatorship, but there are usually civilians working in these establishments where these people live, servants or people doing services and cleaning the palace or whatever else the case is. How many innocent people died in this? And here you have the president of a country basically glorifying an act of war like it was a music video. It's
Yeah.
just unheard of, and it basically speaks to just the insanity of the entire situation. We can go through another 12 areas of the American regime right now, which is just completely against what you and I would consider human decency. I mean, that's another 15 shows we can spend an hour and a half on. But just in the wake of making war on fishing boats that have never been proven to be transporting cocaine. Then all of a sudden, you're going after the drug lords and you're kidnapping the president of a sovereign state and extraditing him into the United States to face trial in a court in New York. In New York. This is just completely unheard of. And you know what? I think there was a lot of, yeah, there was condemnation, but very light condemnation. And it kind of
Right.
cycles back what you were saying at the beginning. Why? Why are countries afraid to confront Trump on the international stage? Is it still because of these damn tariffs that he's imposing on a lot of these countries, and they don't want to rattle the cage because they're all in the process and midst of negotiation in trying to restructure and solidify and fix the economic mess that this moron has made of the world economy? So it's, and don't forget, you know what? As demented and as stupid as he may come across in a lot of his conversations and a lot of his dialogue, this is the mark of a genius mob boss. Mob bosses are not the most educated of people. We all know that. Okay. However, they are extremely streetwise and intelligent in that sense. So you look at everything that's been going on over the past year. This is the mark of a very smart mob boss with absolutely zero scruples of humanity in him, which makes him that much more dangerous to deal with on a global scale, Gary. I'm just completely overwhelmed. I've been trying to stay away from the media because Manila and I are wintering here in the South, and it's pretty hard to enjoy anything here when you see the travesties that are going on in the rest of the world. Yeah, namely right now, in Venezuela and all the atrocities that are being committed on American soil by his own people. And then you got all the shit that's happening over in the Middle East, and then you have the stuff that's going on over in Europe. It's just completely unhinged and unchecked. Where you and I, as citizens of the Americas, if you want to call it, or North America, always felt safe that we had Big Brother looking after us. And up until this idiot came into power, we no longer have a Big Brother looking after us. Big Brother's not looking after anybody, and
Yeah,
it's,
Big
it's it's
Brother's
it's very
looking after
depressing and
himself
disappointing.
and
Yeah.
a very close circle of buddies. And that's it. Let's go to the comments. We do have a couple of comments. I want to get some of them on here. Okay, so Deborah says, I think the Venezuelans who are happy now will be crying in their soup. Trump left all the cronies there, and I'm sure when he starts deporting Venezuelans, which he has served notice he will be, he'll be sending many to their deaths. And then she also added to that video, the one of the attacks. That video is a disgrace. Hope the next guy has better aim. Referring to the situation back in the summer last year when he was on the campaign trail. To which I call the staged assassination attempt. And
It was great advertisement for Heinz.
yeah. And Monel says he said it like he said it was like watching TV. That's right. When he was watching, because they had the feeds from the choppers and the drones and the fighter jets coming into a room they had set up in Mar-a-Lago. And that's those were some of the shots that I had on earlier of them watching what was going down at the time. Yeah, it was just another day at the office. Maybe I can't see Trump using a phone like an iPhone to play some games on, because I don't think he has the ability to. He's nimble enough with his fingers.
Right.
But it was, he looked more tired than he did look concerned or on edge, as you should be watching something like that going down, because not only are people going to be killed on the ground, but you're hoping like hell that you don't lose any of your attack force going in.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at it, he didn't go to Congress. he had no real authority from what I can see and understand, and everything that I've gleaned from so-called experts who have been espousing their views on the various news channels, that he had no real authority from Congress to go ahead and pull a strike like that. And when you get right down to it, still, sure, maybe drugs were coming in through Venezuela, but by the same token, like, did it register an attack like we witnessed? And what has been gained when you leave 3/4 or better of the same regime behind, in charge,
yeah,
with oversight from you guys? So you know what that oversight is? You pay me a little scratch here and there, and we can ignore this, that, or the other thing, and once in a while we'll slap you on the wrist, but other than that, it's game on and business as usual. And secondly, not only this came up during his crap over fentanyl crossing the Canadian border into the U.S. Okay, drugs are coming into your country. What the hell are you doing? Why, instead of blowing these boats out of the water in international waters with, sending half of your Navy down to do it, why aren't you patrolling your coastlines, patrolling your coastal borders better? Why? Yeah, maybe they came across our line, but you're the one who let them in. It was your side that let them in on your side.
And not only that, Gary. So fine, you have all of this drugs that's coming in internationally by whatever channels, okay? So this drug is going to who? Who's buying these drugs for further distribution? And I read something not too long ago with some sort of an FBI document that essentially said that 60 to 70% of the people that take in these drugs in the United States for further distribution to the population to buy are American citizens. These are your local American, born in the USA people that are buying all of these drugs from the cartels for further distribution. So what are you doing to corral these people? Which begs the question, you're not controlling your waters like you're saying, Gary. Well, what are you doing to stem the tide of further distribution once it actually makes it onto U.S. soil? That's point number one.
Yeah.
Point number two, what are you doing to help these people that are hooked on these drugs to get them off of this so the drug cartels have nowhere to sell them anymore? Right? And three, here's the worst part of it. This is my conspiracy theory going into play here. Trump is taking a cut, or going to take a cut, of any drugs coming out of Venezuela in his own pocket. I'm sorry, I said it. I don't care. That's what I'm thinking as well. So he's going to line his pockets with natural resources, and he's going to line his pockets with whatever mob scheme he's going to put into play in Venezuela, and line his pockets even further.
Well, here's the other thing, Eddie. Some of the biggest customers for cocaine travel within the Trump circle.
That too.
So how much cocaine do you think will be cut off coming into the U.S.? He is so full of shit when he opens his mouth and talks about things like this, and pardon my language, but that's just the way it is, that how anyone in that country could even say to you, to your face, that they remotely believe a word coming out of that guy's mouth. Anyhow.
Well, here, 38%, he still has 38% of support from the polls that are being taken of how he's handling himself as a president. And not too long ago, there was also some poll conducted in the United States nationwide about American support of this attack on the on Venezuela, what they just did. It was over 60%, a resounding 60% of people, registered Republicans, support what President Trump has just done. Holy shit, Gary! Like that knocked me on my ass. I mean, I just could not believe that.
So, first of all, Monel says, Gary, he doesn't care if he loses his people. He doesn't care if he kills other people. This man does not care about any human beings. Totally agree with that, Monel. He really doesn't. He cares about Donald Trump. And he might have a little bit of empathy for people around him as long as they're useful to him. If they're not useful to him, that's it. Game over. So, let's go to another clip from that news conference, because Trump was asked by a reporter about the difference between Maduro and a pardon he issued to another drug lord a month ago. This was his response.
You said that Maduro is responsible for drug trafficking. You recently pardoned the former president of Honduras, who was convicted of many drug trafficking. Can you explain how these two situations are different?
Well,
would you ever pardon Maduro?
The man that I pardoned was, if you could equate it to us, he was treated like the Biden administration treated a man named Trump. That didn't work out too well for them. This was a man who was persecuted very unfairly. He was the head of the country. He was persecuted very unfairly. And there are a number of them. And we felt that it was a very unfair situation that happened to him. He's also a party member of the man who won. So obviously the people liked what I did. And one of the reasons that was done is because of the fact that the party in power felt very strongly that that man was treated very badly. I studied it very quickly, and then I studied it in great detail. I went to a lot of the people standing behind me, and they felt that that man was persecuted and treated very badly. That's why I gave him a pardon.
Like, really? Seriously?
I hadn't seen that. I don't know what to say. Never answered the question.
No.
I this and I that. I did this quickly. You know what? The man it was proven that he was shipping tons and tons and tons of drugs over the United States, and he got pardoned. And by the way, I mean it's a known fact that Trump sells pardons. By the way, right? You give him a few million, he'll give you a pardon. Like, what the hell, man? But you know what? I'm surprised that in the pool of reporters that Trump now allows to interview him, or actually in the White House press corps, actually had the cojones to ask that question. And he didn't call him a little bitch or a little whatever the hell, a little piggy or whatever else. That was a damn good question. He didn't answer a damn thing, but you know what? I'm pleased that somebody actually asked it.
Well, absolutely. It was the elephant in the room that had to be addressed, and it was not addressed, which, like you say, Eddie, dollars are exchanging hands here somewhere. Yeah, and that's let's just quickly go to the comments again for a second. And Deborah says, translated, he paid me lots of money. That summarizes it, just as you said, Eddie. There's no doubt that money was exchanging hands. Trump is not in it for the good of the American country, the United States. Trump is in it for the good of Donald J. Trump, period. And not even his family, really. If they happen to be clinging on and making a few bucks along the way, great. But in the meantime, he used the stage on Saturday, then again on Sunday on Air Force One to throw out again the threats to Colombia, Greenland, and he's really focused on Greenland, and they laughed. Trump and Lutnick there laughed.
Right.
And that's what I'm calling, because Lutnick is a nut. Lutnick.
Yeah.
They laughed about it. How do you laugh about something like that?
True. No, absolutely. I
This
mean, you know
this
what? They laugh about it. I mean, you know what? If you're going to threaten the country, don't joke around about it like it's a laugh. You can't even have a whole serious face for something as critical as invading another country's territory. It's a
exactly.
joke. This whole they're so above the law, Gary, right now, so above the law that nothing is impeding them. You got Schumer doing absolutely nothing as Democratic House leader. I mean, absolutely nothing. He has to be
Exactly.
on the tape. I just cannot believe that this guy does. He doesn't even, even the most friendliest of countries to the United States condemned Donald Trump. This guy is his opposition, supposed to be representing the sanity of the United States. Doesn't even condemn him. I just don't get it. The whole government is in total disarray in the United States. Nothing is
The,
going to stop. What are you
the
going to
fact
do?
of the matter is, Eddie,
How
there
are you
is
going to
no
stop
government in the United States at the moment. It's just
it?
a corporation. Well, not even a corporation. It's a mob family
Yes,
headed
yes,
by Trump. There's no government really in the United States of America at the moment. The power sits right there in the Oval Office in the White House with Bozo and the yes people that he has surrounded himself with. That's it.
mhm,
That's like, I mean, when we were talking about this sort of thing this time last year, just before he was sworn in, because it'll be a year later this month that he was sworn in,
right.
and we were looking at the trade war that we were staring down the barrel of, and what kind of implications that would have. And he was going on about fentanyl crossing the border and blah blah blah. Really, look how far it's gone since then. And in between, he tariffs an island that's has nothing but penguins. The poor penguins were going to be paying tariffs to the United States.
Right.
When that comes out, what was wrong with the sane people in that country who said, like, wait a minute, like, how ridiculous is this? They're living in some kind of screwed up horror / comedy movie of some sort.
They're
Some of it
watching a
is
reality
funny.
show starring Donald Trump.
Yeah,
His supporters are watching a reality show uh, featuring Donald Trump. That's exactly what it is. Uh, it's like he's, head of some sort of a reality show, and his reality show is the country. I mean, that's his platform, and people are lapping it up. Oh, that's just Donald. You just attacked the country for crying out loud. You know, I don't know. I'm just so much at a loss for words. I'm just disillusioned about the whole thing and the whole state of affairs, and I just have to blame that. Donald Trump is a huge part for a lot of the ugliness of the world, and the ugliness of the United States is being put on display openly for the rest of the world to see. I mean, you click in on other media around the planet, and they're all seeing and reading the same thing we're seeing. How awful things are in the United States, and what implications it has in countries around the world. And quite honestly, I, along with probably well over 1 billion people, wake up every morning and look at the obituary to see if there's any good news in there. I mean, it's that's sad to say. That's literally what happens. It's supposed to, hey, good morning, how are you today? It's like, hey, any good news in the obituary? I mean, what an insane way for the world to view itself in terms of, you know, is the
yeah,
world going to get better this year? I don't. It's going to be very, very hard to believe. One can only hope, but Gary didn't start off very well. There
no,
we go. We had the first
no.
missiles in a sovereign nation in North America openly attacked.
And Greenland being threatened now with military. And he
You know,
on Air Force One the other day said, well, that will be doing something there within the next 2 months. Meanwhile, Stephen Miller, is it Stephen Miller?
PB German, yeah.
One of his top advisors, who is a real nutcase. I watched him last night in an interview on CNN. He's right out of it. Right out of it. It's like he's on some of the nose candy that Trump is so-called trying to cut off, right? Anyhow, he was on there and going on about this. I just cannot believe some of the comments that are being made by the people who are in the tight-knit circle around Trump. And these are advisors? Jeez. Yeah. Let's catch up on a couple of more comments. Jen comes in. Of course, I mentioned about the penguins being tariffed by Trump. Jen says the poor penguins.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to, because I love penguins. And Ivanka says, so very true. He only cares about what he wants. He is a bully and a dictator. And welcome. Thank you for popping in and making a comment tonight. And then we have Deborah, who says, if you have drugs crossing your border patrol is not doing their job. Bang on. Absolutely. So then also now, so we've got Colombia, we have Greenland. We even mentioned Panama again. Panama has been, he mentioned that before he was sworn in about taking over the canal.
The canal, right?
Yeah, so he mentioned that again this weekend. And then, of course, the 51st state.
There's us.
Yep. And I think that the response has been muted. And I don't think it's so much right now the trade war. I think the response overall across the world has been muted because they know they're dealing with some kind of a whack case that has the codes. And the only thing separating us between him and the codes is the U.S. military, whose sworn duty is not to the president as commander-in-chief. Their sworn duty is to the Constitution of the United States of America.
Right.
Which apparently Trump can't read, because he's ignored everything and broken every article pretty much in it. Oh, right. Monel said, don't forget about Cuba. Yes, I almost forgot about Cuba. Thank you, Monel. How could I forget about that? But that's, we don't know who's next. But I'm thinking...
He's so unpredictable. I mean, how often have I told you, Gary, I'm afraid of his next bowel movement because we don't know what's going to happen right after that.
Yeah, exactly. And the other side of it is, they intercepted 2 tankers today trying to get out of Venezuela, and they were being escorted by Russian boats. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. I haven't had a chance to read what type of boats, but I presume Russian Navy boats. But Putin's got his hands tied right now. His resources are full in on the Ukraine. He's got himself into a mess, and he's having a hard time digging out of the hole that he has created in the Ukraine. So the only real punch he has to get engaged in, he can't really get engaged in another ground war somewhere. His only punch would be to get the keys out and push the buttons.
Right.
And I don't think, as much as he threatens it, I don't think he's ready to go quite that far yet.
Yeah. Well, that's the key word, Gary. Yet.
Yeah.
He's got the capacity to do it, though.
Yep. And then you have the Chinese on the other side. So who knows? Anyway, I just, okay, Monel says it was a Russian submarine. I just want to go back to something here. to just, we're talking about the oil, and of course, Canada's concerned because it could cut into our sales to the U.S. as well. Oh, there we go. Oh, how'd you get into my shot?
I'm looking good. You're looking good today, Gary.
Yeah, okay, that's bizarre. Anyway, we'll go back. Eddie, you can sit. There we go. But I really do want to share this part of it, and just so that we get a feel for what's happening here. Market share and production, because there is a lot of concern about the impact on Canadian oil sales from Alberta. Okay, so daily production. Canada, we're producing 5 million barrels per day. Venezuela, 1 million barrels per day as of this month. Right. Exports to the U.S., Canada, 4,500,000 barrels per day. Venezuela, 120,000 to 500,000 barrels per day. And of course, those exports to the U.S. have fluctuated wildly due to recent blockades and shifting sanctions. Mm-hmm. That's on that side of it. So then we go to proven reserves. Canada, 170 billion barrels. Venezuela, 300 billion barrels. That's the thing that people are thinking, that Venezuela is sitting on the largest stash of crude oil in the world. Now, I watched a guy, don't shame me, I watched a guy on TikTok earlier today, and the guy works in the oil fields in Alberta. And I watched one of his other videos, and he really did seem to know what he was talking about. He came out with the fact that the 300 billion barrels that Venezuela is claiming, he said, there's no real hard evidence that much oil exists. That was a number when the leader was asked one day about it, came up with that number. Now, I don't know, like, this is proven reserves, and this is information that's based on information that's being passed to investors and so on to make decisions. So right now I'm going with the 300 billion barrels, but everything that I learned from this guy in his TikToks, the others that I watched, made a lot of sense. He really did know what he was talking about. He wasn't a fly-by-night person. So there may be some discrepancy there. And the primary U.S. region where the oil's going to go, Canada, it's the Midwest and the Gulf Coast. They do have some refineries in the Midwest that manufacture or refine the heavy oil. Venezuela, it's the Gulf Coast. Now,
Texas.
Yeah. The refineries in Texas were built to refine the Venezuelan oil, which is very similar to Canadian heavy oil, but the Canadian heavy oil is a little bit different.
If you remember something like that.
Yeah, and they made the changes that needed to be made, and to refine the Canadian oil. However, if they do get the oil flowing from Venezuela to the Texas coast, it's 4 or 5 days by tanker tops.
Right.
And then we're talking about coming through Canada, and I did not realize this until I did the research on it yesterday. Coming through Canada by pipeline, it takes weeks for the oil to come from Alberta through the pipeline down to the Texas coast, to the Texas refineries.
Didn't know that.
No, I didn't either. Now, the other side of it is, the one thing is, Eddie, oil coming from Venezuela, it's not going to get to the Midwest refineries. And we've got the pipelines going into the Midwest refineries. Now, I've seen numbers tossed around about if they do get Venezuela pumping oil out and going back into the States, that it would have maybe about a 10% impact on our sales. But a 10% impact as far as when you look at the royalties and everything going into the Alberta coffers and even the federal coffers is a fair chunk of change, for sure. So there is that aspect. But Trump's bragging about, we'll get it up and running within 18 months. You just don't build oil infrastructure in 18 months. Hell, we can't even get Olympic venues finished on time in 4 years.
And who at this particular stage, in terms of the oil companies, which are very interested in oil because they did pay $100 million to his campaign.
Yeah.
How many times does a company invest in a country that's completely destabilized and get a return on investment from that? There's a big risk associated with that too, right?
Yeah, very much so, because what's going to happen is once they start sending oil to the U.S., that's more oil on the market. And more oil on the market is because demand has dropped over the last couple of years for oil. So the more oil going onto the market is going to drive down the price. Well, when you drive down the price of oil, and it's already down as it is, but when you drive down the price of oil, then they're going to be really struggling to get any kind of return on the billions of dollars of investment that Trump is talking about to rebuild the infrastructure in Venezuela. It's almost like he's that stupid that he can't see his nose in front of his face. But then again, this is a guy who bankrupted casinos. So
which doesn't happen anywhere else on the planet.
Exactly. How can you take any kind of business type of advice or pressure from somebody like that? These oil execs are going, and he has a meeting with them on Friday at the White House. These oil execs are going to go in. They might blow smoke up his butt for a few minutes, but they're probably going to go in with some harsh realities, and he's going to be beat off big time.
You know what him and his him and his state-controlled media are going to control that dialogue, no question about it. They're going to spin it into a positive, and Trump's supporters are just going to lap it up. It's just Donald Trump. He's a top guy when it comes to the art of the deal. How do I know? Because I heard it on Fox. Well, there you go. That's about the extent of his supporters' wisdom in a lot of cases. So, very, very, very interesting times are going to be coming up. I just like you, I'm looking forward to hearing what the oil executives and the oil barons in the United States are going to be doing with this. You know what? And I sincerely hope it wasn't just a case of Trump exercising his ego and using the military to get into Venezuela. He has oil on his mind without actually backing from the American oil companies that in fact are going to go in there. And just cycling back to what we said half an hour ago, this just could be another attempt at covering up the travesties and Trump's association with the Epstein files. And I think a few days ago, my wife mentioned that Pam Bondi says they're going to be releasing the files in 4 years or over the next 4 years. What the hell is that? So we want to talk about being above the law. Congress voted a proposal to table the law, and the president of the United States signed it into law, and he's actually ignoring the law that he signed into action. It was already supposed to release everything, and she comes out on whatever media that it's going to be released in 4 years. Well, no, Gary, at the end of the day, Congress can't do anything. So you know what? Donald, okay, the Democratic majority at some point, we're going to be impeaching you. You know what Donald's going to say? So what? I'm not
Exactly.
going anywhere. What are they going to have to do? The guys in the white suits with the truck outside at the with the cherry on top come in a straight jacket and take him out? That's not going to happen. This man, this man is how different is he from Maduro?
Well,
Really?
exactly. He's not.
He's not going to leave. No matter, you know what? Next November is coming up. Great. There might be a sweep where Congress is going to be manned by Democrats, and we're going to be hoping some action from them. When you have morons like Chuck Schumer in charge, and he's going to be in charge of that, not much is going to happen. And you know what? They've been powerless now. They're going to be powerless, I think, after the landslide, the Democrats winning the landslides coming next midterm election, and they're going to do nothing with it because what are you going to do? You're going to send the FBI after him. You're going to send the police after him. Who are you going to send? Who are you going to get him removed from office? Secret Service is sworn to protecting the president. Gary, it's ridiculous. And the word that comes into my mind that I hope never happens, it's freaking civil war. This
Yeah.
is the basis and the recipe that can genuinely leave countries that are not as strong as the United States. That typically leads to civil war. Now, can you imagine 340 or 350 million Americans where there's what twice as much guns in the United States as there is people? Can you imagine a civil war?
Yeah.
And then you and I, in this beautiful country of ours called Canada, having to watch our neighbor down south going through a civil war. How long do you think before that spills over into Canada?
Well, exactly. That's
I don't know.
that's a real
I know I'm
danger.
kind of going off on a tangent here, but it's just damn scary.
Yeah. And unfortunately, some of this is going to roll over into segment 2 because Kearney's response, I think, was, well, we'll get into it in segment 2. Let's end it this way.
All right.
Little thought. What happens in Venezuela doesn't stay in Venezuela. U.S. power moves affect energy prices, global stability, and the safety of Canadians abroad. So we've got to be prepared and be able to react to whatever comes next.